Bicycle touring is generally an overnight endeavor, which means that a bike tour is usually 2 days or more. That being said, there are one-day bike tours that are conducted all around the world. There are usually two types of one-day bike tours. The first is a city tour, like if you go to Paris or London or something like that, you might join up with a bike tour, which tours you around that specific area and shows you some of the sights or whatever, and within a couple hours you have toured that location. So that's one type of one-day bike tour. There are also organized bike tours all around the world, like the 5-borough bike tour in New York City, where you ride through New York on your bicycle over the course of one day. That's a bike tour as well. But for this specific program, the Bicycle Touring Pro Coaching Program, I'm not going to be talking about one-day bike tours. I'm going to be talking about multi-day bike tours, whether it's a weekend tour near your home, a week-long trip in your home state or your home country, or maybe a week, multi-week, multi-month-long trip in your home country or anywhere in the world. Bicycle touring can be called a number of different things. It's oftentimes called bike packing, bike touring, cycle touring, adventure cycling, bicycle travel, etc., etc. One of the most important things that I'm going to teach you in this Bicycle Touring Pro Coaching Program is that there are different types of bicycle tours. And the type of bike tour that you want to conduct is going to dictate the bike you ride, the gear you use, the clothing you wear, how far you cycle in a given day, who your travel partners are, whether you travel alone or with another individual, where you sleep at night, etc., etc., etc. So understanding this fact first is very, very important. 1, there are different types of bicycle tours. 2, the type of bike tour that you conduct is going to dictate the equipment you use, the distances you cover, the places you stay, etc., etc. There are 3 main types of bicycle touring, and it's very important that you understand these 3 main types of bicycle tours. First, there's the guided tour. This is a bike tour where you are led along your route by an experienced bicycle touring guide. Usually there's a touring company that's involved, and there's 1 or 2 or sometimes even 3 guides or more, depending on how big your group is. So if you're conducting a guided tour, a lot of the details for your trip have been taken care of by the touring company or by the guide, him or herself. So this is one of the easiest types of bike tours to participate in, simply because so many of the details, the mapping, the lodging, the food, a lot of those things, or maybe in some cases all of those things, have been taken care of for you in advance. Your only job is to show up at the beginning of the tour, jump on your bike, and enjoy yourself as much as you possibly can. The main advantage to guided bicycle touring, as I said, is that there's less work involved on your part as far as planning and preparing for your trip. You simply show up. Also, the guides are able to show you some of the best places in the world. They've kind of picked out the ideal route for you, and they're able to tell you about the local culture, etc., etc. That's something that you will not get necessarily if you're traveling by yourself, or if you do get that information, you're going to have to hunt it out. It's a little bit harder to obtain. So those are some big advantages to a guided bicycle tour. Another big advantage to a guided bike tour is that if you're a solo traveler and you don't want to ride alone, you can join a guided bicycle tour anywhere in the world and ride with another group of people. Oftentimes these groups contain a lot of single people, sometimes it's a lot of couples, and sometimes it's a big group of friends. I just went on a bike tour in Norway this past summer, and there was a group of 8 people on the tour, 4 couples essentially, who were all traveling together, and that was really cool. So there was the 8 of them, there was a family of 4, and then there was me by myself. But yeah, every tour is a little bit different, and you never know who you're going to get on the trip. Sometimes that can be really fun. Sometimes you just don't know who's going to show up. The main disadvantage probably is price. Guided bike tours are generally the most expensive type of bike tour that you can conduct, because you're not only paying for yourself, your bike rental maybe, your accommodations, your food, but you're also paying for the guide. And the touring company that organized the entire trip. So there's some advantages and disadvantages to a guided bicycle tour. Then there are self-guided bicycle tours. Self-guided bike tours are a tour that has been organized by a tour company. So the tour company has mapped out a route for you. They've maybe even supplied you with a bicycle and the gear that you need for your trip. And a lot of times they will plan your lodging and food along the way. So all of that is taken care of for you in advance. The main difference here is that there is no guide to follow you and escort you along your route. So you are on your own to make sure that you reach your destination each day, to follow the directions that have been laid out for you by the tour company, and to get any food or water, etc., that you might need along the way. Also, if you have any repairs that need to be made to your bicycle, you get a flat tire or your derailleur isn't working properly or something like that, you're going to be on your own to fix that on a self-guided bicycle tour. So you'll either need to fix it yourself and have those skills, or you're going to need to find a bike shop or somebody that can help you. Another big advantage to a self-guided bike tour is that you can choose who you do the bike tour with. If you want to travel alone or you're unable to find somebody to travel with you, then a self-guided bike tour can be a great way to go. If you want to travel with a loved one or a friend but don't necessarily want to travel with a big group, then a self-guided bike tour can be a great way to go. And if you want to travel with a big group of friends but don't necessarily want to have anyone else join you on your tour, then a self-guided bike tour can be a great way to go. The other big advantage to a self-guided bike tour is that you have the independence to do whatever you want. On a guided group tour, oftentimes there's a very strict schedule of where you need to be and what time you need to be there, whereas when you're on a self-guided bike tour, your schedule is much more loose. The only thing really that you have to do each day is to reach your destination at the end of the day and maybe get there by a particular time so that you can have time for dinner. Otherwise, you're free to stop along your route wherever you want, take photos, read a book, do anything, go into a restaurant or some shops, etc., etc. So if you want flexibility, then a self-guided bike tour is definitely worth considering. And finally, the other major benefit to a self-guided bicycle tour is price. It's kind of in between expensive and inexpensive. It's somewhere in the middle because you are in fact paying for a company to do a lot of the work for you, but you're not paying for that individual, the guide, to escort you along your route. That can be quite expensive, and so not paying for that drops the price down significantly. So if you want to go on an adventure that is kind of planned for you in advance, all the details are taken care of for you, etc., etc., but you want the freedom to do as you please once you get out there on the road, then I would encourage you to consider at least joining a self-guided bicycle tour somewhere in the world. Finally, there is self-supported bicycle touring, and this is the thing that I am going to be talking about for 99% of the Bicycle Touring Pro coaching program. Self-supported bicycle touring is where you travel by bike and carry all of your gear and belongings and clothing and food and water, etc. on your bicycle, and you are prepared at any time in your trip to make repairs to your bike, make adjustments to your route, figure out where you're going to eat and sleep each day, etc., etc. You are your own guide on the road. Self-supported bicycle touring is where you are in charge of yourself and you are in charge of every aspect of your trip, from planning your route to finding places to stay each night to figuring out which foods you're going to eat, etc., etc. One of the main advantages to a self-supported bicycle tour is that you're in charge of your own destiny. You can go wherever you want, you can travel as fast or as slow as you want to, you can choose your own travel companions, you can eat whatever you want, you can sleep wherever you want. Another big advantage to self-supported bicycle touring is your budget. If you're on a budget, a self-supported bicycle tour is the cheapest way to travel by bike. Part of the reason self-supported bike touring is so cheap is because, one, there is no guide or company to pay like there is with the other two main types of bicycle touring. Secondly, you're in charge of your own destiny, so you can choose where you eat, inexpensive foods or expensive foods. You can choose where you sleep. You can sleep for free in the middle of the forest, or you could pay hundreds of dollars for a hotel each night. And you're free to choose your travel companions, who also dictate your overall budget for your trip, because you can split the cost with them. For example, you get a hotel room, you split the cost. Sometimes you can split meals. When you go into a supermarket, you buy the pasta and I'll buy the pasta sauce, that sort of a thing. And so yeah, there's a lot of benefits to traveling on a self-supported bicycle tour. The main disadvantage to a self-supported bike tour is that it requires more work on your part. Whereas with the other two types of bicycle tours, a lot of the details have been taken care of for you by somebody else. On a self-supported bike trip, you're in charge of your own destiny, and therefore there's a lot more work that you have to do as far as planning your trip, figuring out which bike and gear to use, which clothing to wear, where you're going to go and sleep each night, etc., etc. So there's a lot more work involved. But for me, I actually really enjoy the planning and preparation process for bicycle touring, and that's kind of why I started Bicycle Touring Pro and why I started the Bicycle Touring Pro coaching program, because I really enjoy the process of planning my trips, of picking a destination, of mapping out my route, of figuring out which places I want to see throughout my journey. I think the planning and preparation process for a bike tour is just as fun as the tour itself, and I hope that you can maybe try at least to look at your bike tour that way as well. So those are the three main types of bicycle tours, and like I said, it's important that you understand them, not only for the definitions, but also to understand that there are different ways to travel by bicycle. In addition to these three main types of bike tours, there are a number of different subtypes, which I'll tell you about right now. As I mentioned previously, there's something called day touring, which is where you ride your bike over the course of a single day. Generally, this is not what I'm going to be talking about in this program, but there are bike tours out there that can be done in just a few hours or over the course of 24 hours in just a single day. A supported tour, however, is a tour where somebody, it could be your wife or your husband or a friend, is supporting you in some way, usually with a vehicle that follows you along your route. Let's say you wanted to ride your bike from Los Angeles to New York City, and you wanted to do a supported tour. Now, a supported tour could be guided, self-guided, or self-supported, but if you're doing a self-supported trip where it's basically just you and no official touring company, then a supported trip might be you riding your bike each day while your husband or wife follows you along your route in a car, so that if you need water or you want to stop for lunch somewhere, you meet up with the car and they have all your food and everything waiting for you when you get there, or they meet you at the hotel at the end of the day, and that way you don't have to actually carry all of your belongings with you as you ride. So that's an example of a supported bicycle tour. There's also what's known as a self-supported guided bicycle tour, and this is a guided bike trip where you do have a guide that follows you along your route, but the guide is not being supported by a vehicle that carries your stuff and everyone else's stuff in the group. Instead, you carry all of your own belongings on your bicycle, just as everybody in your group carries all of their belongings on their bicycles, and you're escorted along your route by an experienced bicycle touring guide. So that's a twist, a kind of a combination of two different types of bicycle touring. And so that's a good way to get into self-supported bicycle touring, while at the same time having the safety and comfort that comes with having a guide escort you along your route. So you get the full-blown self-supported experience of carrying your own things, etc., but the guide is there to basically help you with routing and to help you with any other obstacles that might come up throughout your bicycle tour. Then there is bike packing, which has become very popular in just the last couple of years. And bike packing is simply another type of bicycle touring. It's a subtype of bicycle touring. It is bicycle touring. It's just a different way of packing your bicycle. So a lot of the techniques and strategies that I'm going to teach you in this coaching program are for what I call traditional bicycle touring, which is mainly on paved surfaces and on roads and bike paths and that sort of thing. Bike packing generally, however, is an off-road bicycle tour. And because you're cycling in off-road conditions, that usually means bumpy terrain, trails, single-track trails and stuff like that. And because you're riding on different terrain, you're going to pack in a different way. Instead of using panniers or a trailer, for example, which bounce around when you're on bumpy roads, in bike packing you pack with frame packs or rack packs or seat packs, etc., which do not jiggle around as you ride. So bike packing is bicycle touring, it's just a different way of packing. There is the overnight bike tour or the sub 24-hour overnight bike tour. This is a bike tour that you can do on the weekend, for example, where like on a Saturday, you might leave your home, cycle 20, 30 miles or kilometers or something like that, cycle a certain distance, stay at a hotel or a campground overnight, and then cycle back home the following day. And all of that can be done within 24 hours. So that's why it's called an overnight bike tour or sub 24-hour overnight. There is light touring. Light touring is where you pack lighter than you would on a full-blown self-supported bicycle tour. The main difference here is that you are paying attention to packing less. And if you've seen any of my bicycle touring photos or videos, you've probably seen me carrying 4 panniers on my bicycle, 4 of these bags that go on my bike, 2 on the front and 2 on the back, and then I have a smaller handlebar bag as well usually. That is fully loaded bicycle touring. That's what that's called when you have all of the gear that I just mentioned. But when you have just 2 rear panniers, 2 bags on the back of your bike, and maybe a handlebar bag up front, maybe not, that sort of bicycle touring with just those 2 rear panniers is oftentimes called light touring, and it's very popular in Europe. There are entire ranges of touring bicycles that are designed for light touring, which means they aren't necessarily designed to go super long distances, but they are equipped to do, short weekend style trips and even much longer, like 1 or 2 week long bike tours, where you carry everything you need in just 2 panniers on the back of your bicycle. Finally, the last subtype of bicycle touring that I want to talk about is called credit card touring. And credit card touring is when you travel by bicycle and pack almost nothing on your bike. Maybe just some food to get through the day, your wallet with a credit card or cash, and probably like rain gear, something like that. Otherwise, you pack almost nothing on your bike and you simply pay to stay in places along your way, so hotels, hostels, that sort of thing, and you pay to buy all your meals along the way at restaurants or supermarkets. So you don't carry a camp stove, you don't carry camping gear, any of that. It's very, very lightweight, and the goal usually of credit card touring is to cover longer distances, to pack light so that you can cover longer distances in a shorter amount of time. So as you can see, there are 3 main types of bike tours: guided bike tours, self-guided bike tours, and self-supported bicycle tours. And then under those 3 types of bicycle tours are a number of different subtypes. And like I said at the beginning of this video, the most important thing for you to understand at this point is that there are 1, different types of bicycle tours, and 2, that the type of bike tour that you want to conduct is going to dictate the gear you use, the distances you cover, the places you stay, the people you choose to travel with, etc., etc. So let's say you want to get into self-supported bicycle touring, where you're going to be carrying your own gear, mapping your own route, figuring out where you're going to stay each night, etc. One of the best things that you can do if you want to get started with that but aren't quite ready to leap straight into self-supported bicycle touring is to participate in one of the other 2 types of bicycle tours, whether it be a guided or a self-guided bicycle tour. And the reason it's so great to do that as a beginner bicycle tourist, to participate in a guided bike tour, for example, is that you get the bicycle touring experience. You discover what it's like to travel day after day after day on your bicycle. You get the group dynamic oftentimes if you're doing a guided tour with a group, which can be a lot of fun, especially for beginners that are just starting out. And you'll be paired with other people that are probably beginners as well to a certain extent. And finally, you have the safety and comfort that comes with having a guide to escort you along your route. So as a lot of people who are new to bicycle touring don't know maybe how to fix their bicycle to a full extent or that sort of a thing, and so having the guide there to help you with those issues if and when they come up is a huge help. And if you don't want to do a guided bike tour, or maybe it's too expensive, a self-guided bicycle tour is really another good option, because self-guided bicycle touring is even closer to the self-supported bicycle touring experience, because there is no guide to actually escort you along your route. You are in charge of yourself throughout the tour, even though some of the work, at least, has been done for you in advance by the tour company. The route has been mapped out for you, your hotel stays have probably been booked in advance, and maybe even some of your meals have been taken care of. But you're still very independent. So it's really a good training ground for anyone who wants to go on a self-supported bicycle tour to first participate in a guided or self-guided bicycle tour. We'll talk about this subject some more inside one of my upcoming Q&A sessions that we have here as part of the Bicycle Touring Pro coaching program. It's also important to know that the bike tour that you maybe have in mind for yourself might be a little bit different than the bike tour that someone else here inside the Bicycle Touring Pro coaching program is planning for themselves. And that's one of the benefits of this program. That's why I started it, was because with my book I give out generic information about the different types of bike touring, and then it's kind of up to you to figure out which of that information is going to be best for the tour that you are planning. But here with the coaching program, because our interactions are much more personal, I'm able to work with you much more directly. You can ask me questions, and I can maybe guide you more in the direction of a particular type of touring based on your specific goals, wishes, and desires. Alright guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about how to pick out your ideal destination. In just the same way that understanding the three main types of bike tours and the various subtypes are so important, understanding why and how to pick the ideal destination is maybe even more important. So we'll be talking about that in the next video.